Hello and welcome everybody. Yes, personalized Microbot t-shirt everyone. And on the back, check this out. Not sure if you can see it on the camera. If I turn like this, Microbot, AI companions. Pretty cool stuff. You might be wondering why is it on the back if you're only going to see the front. Well, it's simple because at some point I want to go to some D&D RPG gathering meetings, stuff like that, social events, yes. So I thought it would be cool if I wear the Microbot t-shirt. Maybe some people would ask about it and, raise some more awareness and interest about the server, everybody, which is in part why I'm making these videos and all of this jazz, to raise awareness, to get people interested in what we do here, and just to get you more people to play with. And apart from this reason, I'm also doing it because I like to play myself. I want to build my own account up before TBC, so I have characters to transfer over, and also because I want to create on the website a section of video guides where I go over all the features of the server, starting with the absolute basics: how to hire a companion, how to control them, tips and tricks, all that sort of things that usually are asked by many people who join. And I thought I should get better after making videos and explaining stuff in order for me to serve this purpose, because it's easier for some people to visualize, to see an explanation in a video rather than somewhere on the wiki. I myself much prefer it that way as well. So these videos with the Let's Plays are sort of a learning process for myself. That's why I'm making the t-shirt, the camera, the videos, all this jazz. So eventually I build into, creating some guides. I worked on the website these days, so I can bring it up to speed with all the features that we've implemented over the years and all that jazz. So yeah, I wish I could just write code all day every day and not have to worry about promoting the server, which is what I've done for the longest time, for all the time until now, for 3.5 years, just focused on developing the server. But the server at this point, as it stands, is developed, okay? So the things are in the game, they're nice, and I'm playing myself and I'm enjoying playing it and all that jazz. So at this point, all there is to do is to let other people know that we are here, we are doing the things, we exist, and if it's something that they are themselves interested in, then check us out, that sort of thing. So in the interest of me practicing guides, I know I'm kind of rambling. I have this habit of rambling. I'll try to cut the video shorter parts where I don't ramble as much. But what I want to do is to try to explain every time I make a video, just try to explain what is it that I'm doing, why am I doing what I'm doing. There aren't many people who watch these videos anyway, but there may be one person who watches and can learn something useful or interesting, or maybe something they didn't know before by watching me. And also because it's also a good reminder for myself to try all the features out and to see if they work, how they work, do they have issues, do they need to be improved. I'm in the habit of often asking people for feedback to try to see if things can be improved and that sort of thing. So anyway, without further ado, what do I want to do? Well, I want to run a Dead Mines, and I want to explain to you my whole process. How do I think about running a dungeon? I'm not by any stretch of the imagination an expert. There are many people on the server who are infinitely better at the game, at controlling the companions and all this jazz than I am, but I'm in the know-how. Yeah, more than, well, I wouldn't say more than anybody, but I just want to show you how I view things, and maybe that is useful. But before we do this, let's open up the mailbox. And you remember in one of the previous videos I recommended to you highly that you pay attention to selling things on the auction house, because you, even though you have to post items for 24 hours and you have to pay a deposit fee, which is a little bit steep, especially as you're trying to do all the professions as I do. So you're always starved on money, so that deposit fee is rather unpleasant. However, if you do try to scrape by the silver for the deposit, you eventually get the deposit back when the auction successfully sells, and the marketer will buy it if you post it for 24 hours at double vendor price. And I want to show you what I've been doing. So I've been trying as much as possible to raise my professions. I mean, they're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I am making progress with them. And every time I craft something, whatever it may be, I automatically go and I try to vendor it, quote unquote, to the marketer on the auction house, which gives other people a chance to buy those items quite cheaply. And frankly, if you're on your second character, and gold is not really that big of a deal, because on your main you're able to farm quite easily in the higher level dungeons. Okay, so then you can, on your alt, if you transfer some gold over, you can look at the auction house and you'll find something very interesting. There are many people who just dump their entire inventory. They go to a dungeon, whatever, and then they dump everything into the auction house. So you find all sorts of things. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of items, greens, blues, purples, you name it. So it's a little bit steep, to be honest, because on your first character, because you have to, if you do want to do all the professions, you have to pay for them. So it's rather an investment. But you know, I'm just letting you know that this is a thing. Some people do this and they actually enjoy this aspect of the marketer very much, on top of the fact that you make some more money. So if you look at my auction house, whatever, receipts or bills, whatever, you can see that what I have sold are practically byproducts from various professions. And I have pages and pages and pages of these receipts practically. So just as I was leveling up my professions, I just sold everything that I didn't need to the auction house. So now I just want to give you the pleasure and satisfaction of opening all of these together. I had like 69 silver, which was kind of funny, and I want to make a joke about it, but I think I took the griffin and that broke my 69. Okay, fine, whatever. Let's open the stuff and let's see how much money do we make. And it's probably gonna be something over 1 gold, which is pretty decent, and we'll be making a lot more money by doing dungeons, and you'll see practically your ability to make money is in to a great degree affected by how much you can carry. So that's rather important. But one thing I should mention, because this is a free-to-play server, so you can make as many accounts as you want, I have one account that is pretty much just all about storage, and you can see in my friend list I have friend listed all my storage guys. So one account, all it does is have these guys. There are a bunch of characters that sit at the mailbox in Stormwind. The mailbox, when you send a mail, it's instant on the server, so you don't have to wait for anything. So you just quickly can mail things to your other guys, and those other guys can pick that up and sell it, store it, whatever you want. So I have them organized by various categories and things like this. So when I need, you know, some cloth, I just go to my cloth bank, okay? And because you get a lot of cloth, what I do is that I just craft these bags, okay? Just make a whole bunch of woolen bags. Again, cloth is very, very easy to acquire. Dead mines or any dungeon that has humanoids in it usually has some kind of cloth material. So it's because you can have as many accounts as you want, as many characters as you want, and cloth is cheap, then your storage is in a sense rather solved, your storage issues. It's more annoying just carrying stuff to a mailbox, to be honest. So that's kind of your limit there. You gotta figure that part out. I did craft some, you see, some 8-slot bags, and this one dropped, I don't remember from where, some mob randomly. Yeah, so that's kind of how you do it. And later on in the end game, there are ways to, I mean, you can craft something like mooncloth bags, which are 20 slaughters, and there are some other ways to get like bigger bags through events and trading with other people and all that sort of thing. So there is that. But anyway, look, we made 5 gold. I don't even know. You can see it. Just little payoffs here and there just by selling whatever, practically. Basically anything I don't need, I just sell it off. And I started from 68 silver and now we're at 5 gold 27, so like 4 gold and 80 blah blah. But the point is, this is just me not doing anything in particularly like focused on farming. And this practically just happened by playing the game and selling off. Now we're gonna go and do dead mines, and in dead mines a lot more stuff is going to drop, and I'll try to hold it over to the auction house if possible, and we'll see how much more money we make. I already kind of have a rough estimation because I've ran these many times, but it's very substantial. I mean, it's not trivial. Okay, so 5 gold at level 21. Well, I mean, you can definitely afford things. You can definitely afford your spells and whatever else you might want, professions and whatnots. Cool. So that is that. You also notice that I have a bunch of consumables in my inventory, and I have tried to stress this out in the previous video that I'll be doing professions for a very good reason, and that is because the companions, you can share these consumables with them, and I'll show you how. And as I was also leveling up my enchanting, you see I put some enchants on my gear. I mean, nothing too crazy. Yes, I mean, these are low level enchants, no big deal, just whatever. So some of them are from enchanting, like weapon damage +2. Others are from leatherworking. You have these light armor kits and that sort of thing, and you know, it's rather easy to make them. It really is easy. It's nothing too outlandish. It's not like it takes a lot of time. Most of this is just, you know, as you're playing the game, and you get the leather, and then you take the leather and you mail it to your banks. You see I have Ace Leather in here somewhere, and I just send him all the stuff, and when I'm back in town I just get all my stuff back and I do the crafting, and there we go. And I will show you what that means now, or how that is helpful. Now I want to go do a dead mines, but I want to do a normal dead mines followed by a heroic dead mines. What's the difference? Well, normally you can do a dead mines from around level 18, which is for Alliance the first dungeon you get into contact with, and as a horde you can do it from level 14. You have Ragefire Chasm, but as Alliance you can do dead mines and at around level 18. And actually, if you do it with at least one other person at level 18, so no higher, then you also may qualify for receiving an auto loot pet, which is this junk bond. And this auto loot pet does exactly what it sounds. You don't have to loot anymore. He will just automatically loot for you. There is a problem with this pet, however nice that may sound, is that, well, as you can imagine, your bags will fill up rather quickly because he just loots indiscriminately, and there is no filter for this. You can, yeah, you know, you have to figure out the logistics of it yourself, whatever. If you cannot loot something, if your bags are full, he is simply not going to auto loot at all. Okay, so that's what happens if you go full. But you know, otherwise it's a very nice quality of life, just so you don't have to spend a lot of time just clicking stuff on the ground. But that is neither here nor there. I want to do a normal dead mines, which normally you can do at 18 like I told you, but as something happens at level 20, specifically you can get a paladin, and he has access to consecration, and because of this you can do sort of like bigger, better AoE pulls. So you can just group up a whole bunch of enemies and you can throw dynamites, and paladins drop their consecrations against 3+ enemies, and companions, if you use a dynamite, I'll show you in a second or later on, they'll throw dynamites also on at least groups of 3 enemies. So first the tank will try to pile together all the enemies, And if there are at least 3 of them and all of them are close enough together to each other to fit within the radius of the dynamite, then they'll throw it on that pack, and I'll show you in practice later. And what that allows you to do, if you do the dungeon at least a little bit higher level, well, you can just pull a little bit crazier and faster and just go a bit crazy. Though you have to also be a bit careful, but who cares about being careful? It's all about having a lot of fun and big AoE explosions. Okay, and there's also the heroic dungeons. What's heroic dungeon? Well, the heroic dungeon, you see, the enemies have plus 50% or so. It kind of depends. Well, not really. They have about 50% more health and damage. That's their spiel, which means it's rather problematic if you try to do a heroic dungeon as your lower level, like say 18, because the problem is when the enemy is much higher than you are, you're gonna have a lot of trouble hitting them. Okay, just normal RNGs. Well, just the difference between your lower attack and their higher defense, which means you'll miss and dodge a lot more, and it will take a lot longer to kill them, and because they deal 50% more damage, they'll kill you a lot faster. So it's not exactly pleasant. Well, you can try to do it, but it's going to take a very long time. However, if you do it at say around 21 or 22, you'll find the pleasant surprise that the tables are reversed, and now you're the one who has higher defense compared to their attack, and they have rather well, they don't exactly kill you as fast, which is the point. They still need you still need to have some beefy damage though to compete. So I'm going to do one normal dungeon, hopefully to get at around level 22, and then we're gonna do maybe 1 or 2 heroics, and we're gonna compare the profits. So, okay, from heroics there's the difficulty increase, but you also get more of a reward, like double money and double loot and something like this. So it's quite good, and I did all the math for this. I had whole spreadsheets for every dungeon, just calculating profit per hour and that sort of thing, and it maths out the way I say. So if you do it at around level 22, so you're a little bit into the enemies start to become green for you, so they're not exactly yellow or orange anymore. So you are a little bit over leveled, let's say. You do that, and because you're much higher level and you kill fast enough and you survive well enough, then the amount of profit per hour you make is in fact better, in spite of the difficulty and just taking longer to kill them. So that is the idea there. So that's what we'll be doing. Now, I need to put together a group for achieving this. So what should I be going for? Well, that's a good question. I am a warrior right now, and I'm playing as a warrior DPS, which means I provide what? 2 very important things. One, I have Sunder armor, and even though there's a thing about Sunder armor that maybe if you're new to the player, if you're a newer player, may seem a little bit counter logic, because it says it sunders the target's armor, reducing it by 90 per sunder armor, and causes a high amount of threat, and it also doesn't deal any amount of damage. So you might be thinking, why would I use an ability that deals no damage but causes high threat? Isn't that the tank ability? And well, yes, tanks should use it as well, but well, you see, in reality, the way this maths out is that even though you don't do damage right away, by reducing the armor, which is, well, it increases your damage multiplicatively, and not just for you, but also for the tank, which is really the most important part of this. So the tank is a lot happier for you, and mathematically speaking, there are some caveats, whatever. I don't want to delve too much into the specifics. It's a whole elaborate theory or hypothesis behind this, but just normally what I do is I still do a couple of sunders on every mob up until the point if they are well, as long as they're above 50%, and this allows everybody to kill the things a little bit faster, including the tank. So that's great, but try to attack the things that the tank is attacking, because otherwise you're gonna generate some threat, and it may not be so pleasant for the tank. The tank may not be so happy with you. But this is very important, multiplicative damage, very cool. and then you also provide battle shout, which increases your attack power, or the attack power, or but specifically the melee attack power of all your party members, which means we really want to bank on this melee attack power sort of thing. And also demoralizing shout, which reduces the enemy's attack power by a certain amount, which is very nice defensively speaking. So if nobody else is providing a demoralizing shout, someone definitely should. You should look into this. It's not about, you see, you have to think of vanilla as layers of defense. Think about it as an onion. And this is, I'll get to this point when I talk about the consumables. Oh, we can talk about it now, who cares? But think about it as adding layers, okay? Just like an onion. You add a little bit of attack power here, you reduce the enemy's attack damage there a little bit, you buff yourself up with a few consumables, and all of these together, even though individually doesn't seem like a huge amount of, like for example, 27 health, when you have 861. Like, what is that? I don't know. Less than 1%. It's not exactly crazy. But when it all adds up, layer after layer after layer, through your gear, through your enchants on the gear, through all of this, it starts to make a difference, like 5-10% difference, whatever. And the cool part is that, especially, it starts to snowball, because if you are a little bit high level and the harder you win, this just kind of snowballs that into making it even better and better and better. So that's the idea there. That's why we have to pay attention to this. So when we're looking to hire a group, we kind of have to think around this and try to synergize what can each party member provide to the group. Now, what do I want to do? Well, and maybe one thing I should mention, maybe if this is your first dungeon, look, this is very important to mention. Here's something that you should know, because I see new players, they complain about this aspect, and it's a matter of perspective. It's just the way maybe you just don't know what to expect when you join the server, but I'll tell you right now. The cost of the companions is backloaded, and the overall, you can hire 4 companions, and you can hire 4 companions if you have done the basic quest. Watch my previous videos. At some point I'll make some guides about specifically the basics and all that stuff. But anyway, you can hire 4 companions, and the overall cost of hiring 4 companions is, it's not the cheapest, but it's also backloaded, where the first one will cost me, say, 4 silver and 50 copper, which is fine, but the final one will cost me a lot more. And why is that? Well, because I'm trying to discourage you from hiring 4 companions all the time. Like, sure, you can get 1 or 2 and they're relatively cheap, but if you want a lot of companions, you gotta make sure that you can make a return on investment. How do you do this? Primarily by running dungeons or by playing a lot longer, okay? Because you pick up everything that drops on the ground, so you can sell that. But there's a lot of hypotheses there on what's faster, leveling solo, with companions, all sorts of things, okay? So you can figure more of that on your own. But what am I trying to say is that you have to plan ahead. If you're a new player, my recommendation is to only stick with 1, maximum 2 companions. Usually for like the vast majority of quests, you need no more than 1 companion. However, if you do some kind of elite quest, think Hogger in Elwyn Forest, okay, or some kind of elite guy, and then you might need a third character in your party, just because you don't have enough life, sustain, whatever. Okay, so usually for quests, let's say you can get away with just 2 companions. If you hire your 3rd and your 4th, then definitely be prepared for them to cost more. So that's why, because I see new players trying to hire 4, they're always going broke and never having money. But what are you doing with 4 companions if you're just questing? Okay, you don't need them. That's just the simple reality of it. Anyway, what I would like, first of all, let's consider what sort of tank do we want. I play myself a warrior, so I'm not tanking myself. I can take a hit if I have to, but I would prefer not to. And the cool part about, well, you have the choice between warrior tank, paladin tank, and druid tank. And if I had access to shamans, and maybe at some point I'll explain to you how you can gain access to shamans. Well, I'll explain now because I know some people will be curious about it. For you to hire shamans, and shamans can be tanks too, though. I know it seems like a meme, whatever. I don't want to get into how and why. But to hire shamans, or if you're a horde to hire paladins, you need a character on your own account of the different faction, of the other faction. And notice here, because if we go a little bit back and you see here, it says select which one of your characters would you like to use for hiring. Right now I have 2 alliance characters, but if I had, say, a horde character, then I would be able to hire shamans using that character in particular. However, you cannot hire them still anywhere at all. Like, for example, I cannot hire them right here in a human settlement. It wouldn't allow me. I would have to go pretty far, actually. There are a couple of NPCs, like hiring NPCs throughout the world. One of them is Holy Mana here at Uther's Tomb in Eastern Plaguelands. And there are others all throughout the world as well, like Desolus. On the island here, there's Cersei and that sort of thing. And in Tanaris, you have Caddy somewhere on an island around here, that sort of thing. So you have to know a little bit. These are kind of special NPCs, and they're out of the way. They're not in any kind of settlement. That's why you can hire there. And I also wanted to make it a little bit more involved. Well, they're just they're more anyway. You can find one Anatola, and he is somewhere in Burning Steps, whatever, like, all various ways. This is not the point. The point is, there is a way. It's just not as simple as just hiring alliance characters or your own faction's characters. So anyway, right now we have the choice for a tank between a warrior, paladin, and a druid. And what's the strength of each of them? You see, the cool design of the vanilla game is that the developers intended for all these classes to provide something special and cool to the group. So they're not exactly the same. It does matter which one you go for. For example, a warrior is definitely the tankiest of the bunch, just because what the warrior provides, or what's his main shtick is high avoidance. So he has all sorts of blocks and parries and dodges, and he has the highest avoidance, okay, of all the other tanks, which just makes him the tankiest in terms of, if you calculate his effective HP by factoring in the avoidance, then he's just the tankiest. His problem is that his AoE is not great, and his damage is also not great. On the other side, the druid is, well, his avoidance is quite the worst, really. He's just not very avoiding at all. So he does have high health and he does have high armor, but when you calculate his effective HP based on that avoidance, factoring it in, well, he's rather squishy, in fact. So what happens is that he usually takes a lot of damage. But the cool part about it is that he is also very good at generating a lot of threat. So if you just want a simple tank who can hold aggro good in single target, then he's the one. He's not technically the top threat tank either. There's a lot of caveats. I don't want to go into it because we'll be here all day just talking about this. But either way, it is cool that he also provides Mark of the Wild, so that's a very nice buff that we could use, of course. And then we have the Paladin. And you see the Paladin, he's got some nice avoidance because he's using a shield and he can parry, which is something that the Druid cannot do. And on top of this, well, whilst he's not as tanky as the Warrior himself, because Warrior is just built for tankiness and survivability. But the Paladin is capable of healing himself, which is a very, very, very cool thing to do. And under circumstances, he will. But it kind of depends. And this is a little bit of it's a bit of a nuance here, you see, because at some point it asks for specialization, and in TBC I'll try to get rid of this specialization thing, but either way it's a thing in vanilla. And what is this specifically? Well, you see, you can choose between a might and a magic paladin. The Might Paladin, and it's the same for the DPS Paladin, the Might version is built as a warrior tank would be built, as just with as much avoidance as possible, dodge, defense, that sort of thing. Whereas the magic guy, well, he is more about intellect and strength. So he tries to combine sort of this spell casting aspect to him. And one of the things he does different than the Might one is that he will he'll put points into, I cannot show you right now, spiritual focus. He has a talent as he's trying to get consecration. And he has that which allows him to not be so easily interrupted when he's healing himself while he's being attacked. And at some point at level 20, I don't remember exactly, he gets an aura called concentration aura, which kind of fulfills the whole purpose of him being uninterruptible when he heals, when he casts a heal and he's taking damage. Which means, what is he going to do? Well, the cool part is that he's trying to gather all the enemies, and like I told you, he's gathering all the enemies, he's dropping consecration on them, and then he realizes, hey, my HP is dropping, I have all the enemies, and now I'm going to heal myself. Okay, and because he cannot be interrupted, it makes him rather sustainable. So you see, it's just the genius of the design, because they didn't want all the tanks to be the same, and they just wanted them to provide different strengths and bonuses and that sort of thing. And the cool part about the Paladin is that one, he can heal himself, and I think he may even heal others. I don't remember off the top of my head, maybe not, but at least himself. And he has very good AoE, which means if you want to have any sort of AoE focused group, then I highly recommend you go for a Paladin. And a lot of the times in groups with mages or warlocks, it really is a huge difference between the Paladin and the other ones. While like the Bear, he can still do a decent job at grouping enemies because he just generates a lot of easily accessible threat. So he's like quickly swapping between enemies, and he's just good at that. The Warrior is the worst. He's going to struggle. So yeah, a little bit of caveat there, just building a little bit of the perspective into why am I doing what I'm doing. But I think it's important to say, because I see this being asked a lot, what is the difference? Or I hired a Paladin, why is he not healing me, himself, or others? Well, because of this. However, in the perspective of healing, they will heal you out of combat, no matter if they're might or magic. So there's that. Anyhow, I'm going to go with the magic one. Whilst I do consider that the damage mitigation, let's say, or more mitigation focused is nice, depending on what you're doing and what you need, I just really like this aspect of just being a little bit self-sustainable, because you see what happens. Well, he still gets the armor, right? So he's still wearing mail at the moment, and later on he'll be wearing plate. But he has the mitigation, and you cannot truly like build him fully as a tank anyway. So yes, you can make him a little bit more avoidance oriented, but whatever, man. I don't know, maybe it's a little bit a matter of taste. What can I say? Well, we can try both of them in different dungeons and just see how it goes, just to show you the difference. But right now, let's go for a magic dude. Whether he's a human or not does a little bit matter, because humans do gain a racial bonus to hit chance, and I'm not sure if I can show it to you more easily. Well, it's not so obvious, but they get a bonus to maces and swords, and because they have that bonus, you can see mace specialization increases skill with two-handed maces, with maces and two-handed maces, and they also gain sword specialization, which does the same thing but for swords. And this allows you to have a better chance hitting enemies while they're higher level, and well, while they're lower level too, because whatever. But it just makes them easier to hit enemies, which is very important, I consider. Well, it's let me think, what does the dwarf get? Some kind of poison removing ability. It's really just not that huge of a deal. Now, as a constant increased hit chance. And for a tank, you'll find that hit chance is actually very, very important. And we don't care about the gender, so we'll just skip a dip and go right ahead. Okay. Yeah, so ChatGPT is greeting us here. That's cool. Okay, so we have established that we want a paladin guy, and right now the problem is that he doesn't have the aura that gives him a concentration aura that allows him to mitigate some of that pushback from healing, but he does come with retribution aura. This actually counts for about 5 to 10% of his damage, because if you send him ahead and you just do pulls, which is what I'll be showing you in this video, he'll be reflecting quite a lot of damage with this, so it's pretty good for tanking. Now, they also have the option for armor, but you see armor is a little bit well, it's not as good as you might think. It rather depends. You see, what's the point of armor? Well, the armor gives you percentage mitigation, which is fine, but the amount you would gain from devotion aura would be, I don't know, let's say 1 to 2%, which is fine, but ultimately it's not that huge of a deal. I mean, compared to being a better tank and holding aggro more reliably, mitigating like 1% more damage, physical damage, you can do without, okay? There are more interesting ways of damage reduction, like say, for example, later on he gets Blessing of Sanctuary, which reduces a flat amount of damage, which is very good at tanking many small enemies. Armor is just generally better against bosses who hit like very hard, like very rare and very hard. Like bosses have a possibility of critting you or crushing you, as they do a whole bunch of damage, so you do want to mitigate as much percentage as possible, but we don't really have that problem right here, so we are just better suited with having a more reliable tank. So that's that. And I want to show you something while we're on the subject. So you remember that I told you that I enchanted my gear. For example, I put 15 health on this piece of chest. Cool. And the companions also will enchant their gear based on your enchants. And right now, as I hired the guy, he already comes with his gear enchanted. What happens when you hire him? He will look at what enchants do you have and enchant his gear preemptively. If you already had the companion out when you enchanted your gear, they will still enchant their gear because they realize that you're doing it. Okay, so in a sense you are leading by example, and you see he's mirroring a lot of my own enchants. He put the 10 armor on the cloak. On the chest piece he didn't go for the health one, he went for the armor one. So how does he know to do this? Why did he do this? And how does he know to do this? Well, I've created an equivalency list. So they look at, well, I sort of tiered every consumable and enchant and all the things in the game in a way by 5 tiers. It depends on the profession. And when you use, let's say, an enchant, then he's going to pick an appropriate enchant from the same tier. For example, you have enchants. If you look at health enchants for the chest, you can see the first one is minor health, which adds 5 health, and the second one adds 15 health. So tier 1 would be minor health, and if I had used this, he would have used an equivalent tier 1 enchant himself, which would have been like something like 20 reinforced armor plus 20, or 25, I'm sorry. He would have used this one instead of the 35 one. Okay, so that's how he did it. He recognized that I use a tier 2 enchant, so he picked a tier 2 enchant as well. Why did he pick armor instead of health, which is what I used? Well, it's a little bit, without getting too nerdy about it, if you mitigate enough damage, okay, if you mitigate a certain amount of damage, and it's rather a lot of it actually, well, let's say that for a tank he would have to mitigate about his full HP, his full health bar worth of points before he had mitigated enough damage from this increased armor to be as good as the health here. And you might think, wait, if he's gonna mitigate, if he needs to take so much damage that he would die basically, then isn't that a bad thing? Yes, technically it is. But not if you're getting healed, is it? Because if you're getting healed, then you're gonna lose in certain situations more than once your life bar. Probably like 2 times, 3 times, who knows? Depends on how many enemies attack you, all that sort of thing, how much mana your healer has, how many healing potions you have, and all that sort of thing. So what happens is, up to the point, okay, you can just calculate this, but I don't recommend it unless you're a super nerd. If you calculate this, you need to take basically a lot of damage before the armor enchant is as good as the health enchant. And past that point, all the extra damage that you take is practically makes the armor become better. The only one who's realistically going to see value out of this is the tank, because he's constantly taking damage and he's constantly being healed, so he keeps generating value out of the armor. Whereas something like I'm a DPS, I may get hit occasionally, and the most important part for me is to stay alive, have enough of life cushion that the healer can get to me whenever is possible. Okay, so it just works out that way better. So that's why basically I'm the one who told them, look within the tier that the master used and pick one that I thought was more appropriate, and in this case it was the armor one. So just a fun little tidbit. Like for example, here I used the strength +1 enchant and he used the defense +1 enchant. Okay, so you start to see the point. Also, I used here a weapon damage +2, and he went with the +2 intellect. A little bit questionable if you ask me, but nonetheless, that's what he did. And you might wonder now, well, if I only have one weapon, like a two-handed weapon, and I don't have a shield, but this guy has a shield, then how do I give him a +1 stamina enchant or whatever? How do I enchant his shield? Well, I just did a little bit of mental gymnastics, and I said if you just have an enchant on your weapon, then you know, just do the whole shebang yourself. Okay, so just take it as a package, and yeah, just do both. Okay, just enchant both, even if you only have like a two-handed weapon or whatever, just to, you know, not get stuck in the details, because that's not the point. Well, there's plenty of details, it's just not all of them are as important. So anyway, this is, I used here a leather working light patch, whatever I showed you earlier. So it's this light armor kit, whatever. So that's what he's used there as well, and more armor, and he's got a bunch of rings, and so do I. So cool. That's the cool part about it. And now all the other companions that I will hire will also have their gear enchanted, just like this guy has, except that they'll have their own thing, and I can demonstrate that. So now we need to look into getting ourselves a healer. So what sort of healer do we want? Well, what are the options? Well, option number 1, paladin healer. What's the deal with the paladin healer? Well, you have to consider a little bit, because we are low level. So what can the paladin offer us? Well, normally he would offer us blessings, and in this case you see that this guy has put on himself blessing of wisdom, and he gave me blessing of might. Cool. If I go and hire a healer, what may happen? I don't remember off the top of my head, I'll have to look it up, but he may not have any other blessings. Maybe he'll have blessing of light, I don't know, don't quote me. If he would have other blessings, like say salvation or blessing of light or kings or whatever, then he would use those. But because we're low level and I'm not really counting on that to be the case, then I would suggest not to go with him, because the blessings are a big deal and they do make a difference, and you know, might as well just get some other useful buffs instead of you know, not being able to overlap one. So paladin is already disqualified because we already have, and we don't need the same buffs anymore. We can go with a priest, and the priest is just usually very good. Like, you cannot go wrong with the priest because he gives the most important buff for a tank, which is health. And you see, the cool part about health, well, it's just that what does it allow you to do? Well, it allows you to really bank on the armor. The more health this guy has, the more value potential he's going to get out of the armor, not just the enchants, but just armor in general. So the more armor you have and the more health you have, it just creates mathematically this effective HP, which becomes very good. And the more you stack health and the more you stack avoidances, like dodge, parry, whatever, like defense, right? Because he's got +1 defense here. It's just the more better health is. So you cannot go wrong with the priest.
What can I do for you?
So priest is something that we could consider, of course, for no really other reason. I mean, he's a solid healer in general, and also I know, he's just good in general. Okay, he's like good solid healer. And you also have the druid. And the druid is nice because the druid, what does the druid allow you to do? Well, you see, he gives you Mark of the Wilds, which increases your stats by an amount. And well, it gives you a little bit of armor, so the tank loves that as well. A little bit of stamina, not as much as the priest would give you, but it does give you just armor and stats, which is great. And apart from that, I can't really say that he gives too much else, does he? Not really, I would say, not really. Well, and you have to consider that he doesn't have an out of combat revive. So if you somehow go down and you are with the druid healer, you may not be able to, he may not be able to revive you. But in this case, we do have a paladin, which is actually pretty okay. So for the giggles, let's go with the druid healer. And there's actually another cool benefit of going with the druid healer, and you'll see here in a second, because aside from the Mark of the Wild, which does increase his armor by, you know, not the hugest amount, kind of like 3 enchants worth of armor, so that's you know, decent, and 4+4 to all attributes, again decent. But the coolest part is that he also gives him thorns, and now he also has retribution aura, and together with thorns, that's quite a very nice subtle passive increase in damage. So you see, we're gonna send the paladin in, and even though the paladin doesn't normally come with a taunt like a warrior, which is kind of detrimental, but if you do pulls, and I'll show you because we'll be doing pulls all the time. If you do pulls, then he is going to well, he's going to have no issues holding aggro, which is very cool, and he's also gonna get a very nice passive damage bonus. So that's the reason why I would like a little bit the druid here as opposed to a priest, just because of this thorns. So that's that. And again, if we look at his enchants on the same principle as before, well, what do we see? He also applied the armor, just because, I mean, you don't really have much options. At low levels, you're a little bit limited. But you can see, well, whilst I have health, he went for mana. Whilst I used strength, he went for stamina, and the tank went for defense. He was +2 intellect here. He cannot apply an enchant on his offhand whatever. And here he basically had no other choice. There's no other good choice other than this armor, which is not, you know, it's better than nothing, basically is what I'm trying to say. So there's that. Okay, so what about our choice of DPS? Well, now it's really just up for grabs, isn't it? Now we can, well, I don't know, we can consider, but since we are basically more about the melee, you see, we have a lot of melee potential, because I provide a battle shout, which increases the melee attack power. One good option is the rogue, because you see, the rogue, what the cool part about him is that whilst he doesn't provide any direct buffs like some of these other classes would, what he does provide is very high damage. So he's usually very consistent with this. List talents. He's going for something like backstabbing. He's more about the backstabbing type, and he comes with daggers, which is whatever. But you see, he has enchanted both his weapons, like I told you. Even though I've only enchanted my one weapon here, he did enchant both, including the scope. Look at that, everybody. Pretty interesting. And again, on the cloak, instead of going for armor, he went for agility, health, strength, so all sorts of things that will give him basically more damage. So that's the cool part about him. Okay, so there's that. So, well, he doesn't provide, well, he provides a lot of damage, so more damage than, let's say, your average class. And he can also kick, which basically interrupts enemy spell casting. Under certain situation, he can open lockboxes and doors and chests. And if we come across any locked ones, then I don't think we will in Dead Mines, but just typically speaking, that is how it is. So that is cool. Now, what else to do? Well, you see, I would normally go with a hunter, and maybe I will. The hunter is not particularly great for a few reasons. One, because I'm playing a melee, which means a lot of the time I prefer to fight within close quarters, and the hunter prefers to fight at the range. So I'll be doing a lot of corner pulling where I need all of my team to be grouped together, and all the enemies will be grouped together as well. So the hunter will, well, he'll have a tough time. What can I do? That's just how it is. Well, I guess what we could have done instead. Look, I have an idea, everybody. Check this out. How about, tell you what, let's drop this druid healer. Well, I want the druid healer for the Mark of the Wilds and Thorns, but we're gonna drop him right now. And we are going to get instead... Of course, I dropped him, so I lost the money, which is something, but this is for educational purposes, and I do have money, so I can afford it. What we're going to go for is a melee DPS druid. And the melee DPS druid, he's going to be a cat, and he's going to basically kind of be playing like a rogue. But he does provide the same thing with the Mark of the Wilds and the Thorns, so we get the same buffs, and we also get the melee companion. And finally, we can supplement our healing power with a priest. And now we kind of have all the good buffs. That's what happens here, okay? We don't really have a choice. Well, there's a small difference here. Well, you see, here's the difference. The companions do use their racial abilities. And in the case of the priest, human will get something like Desperate Prayer, which is a long cooldown self-heal. And then the dwarf also gets the same, and I forgot what else he gains, but it doesn't matter. And the night elf gains something like Starfire, which is kind of casted, channeled damage over time, which is really not useful. So, dwarf also provides you with Fear Ward, which cancels the first fear effect that is being slapped on you. I don't think we are getting feared in Dead Mines, so we don't need that. Let's just go with the human. A human also has the benefit of having slightly higher spirit. Priests in particular like higher spirit, though at this level it doesn't particularly matter. But here's the cool part. Now we have all the good buffs, really, we just do. So stamina, of course, very good. Then more stamina, which comes from Mark of the Wild, plus armor, and plus more mana regen for this guy and all the good stuff. And we also have a melee oriented team, so we can do corner pulls and that sort of spiel. And of course, if we look at his enchants, is more of the same. And you see, because the druid's weapon is nothing more than a stat stick, he did not go with the +2 damage on the weapon like the other guys did. Instead, he went with the +5 agility. And the 5 agility, well, is just good for him. And of course, more agility there and some strength there, which is also good for him, and that sort of thing. So that is practically how I view the team composition. So let's start heading towards, there are some quests, whatever, I'll do the quests later, it's not important right now. because I'll be running this dungeon for a whole bunch of time, and yeah, I can always do the quest later. But that is the main idea. So I hope it made sense what I've explained so far. I know some people have questions about this. I see them being asked every now and then, and also it's not a lot of people know about these sharing systems and things like that. That's why I wanted to show you in practice what happens when you enchant your stuff and how it affects the companions. And I'll show you in a moment what happens with the other consumables that I have in the bag, which are very important as well. I'm going to skip a little bit until I get inside the dungeon, and then inside the dungeon I'll buff myself, and I'll show you then. Alright, so here we are inside the dungeon, and as I said, just because the auto loot will loot everything, then of course inevitably we will have so much stuff we practically cannot carry all of it. I'll have to just destroy here and there some things that basically I don't need. It is what it is. What can I say? Such is life. But now that we are inside the dungeon, it's time to buff up and just get ready to fight. So how are the consumables going to play a role in this? Well, it's a little bit of a thing here. Let me actually explain the sharpening stone first, just because this one is simple. You just apply a sharpening stone to your weapon, and your companions will also sharpen their own weapons. So you can see now, if you look at their gear is also sharpened, and they'll just keep sharpening their gear ad nauseam, like as much as they want to, and that's fine. The another thing that is important is this coarse dynamite. So if you throw a dynamite, I managed to build like the second tier of dynamites instead of the first one, so that's pretty cool. And you see it says in the chat that they've also unlocked the coarse dynamite, which is cool. And like I've explained previously, they'll group up the enemies together, and when all of them are together and there's at least 3 of them, they'll throw that dynamite out, which is great. So far so good. However, now that we go into consumables, there's a little bit of a caveat here that's worth knowing. Now, for all the other things that I've explained so far, if the companions die, when they revive themselves, they will keep using those consumables. So they'll keep throwing dynamites, they'll still sharpen their weapon, whatever. However, for this, the actual consumables here, like potions and food and scrolls, if they die here, so okay, when you use one, they gain a sort of like a charge for it, and they will keep using this so long as they have that charge. So if okay, and they lose that charge when they die. So if they never die and you use an elixir of minor fortitude, you can see they will use the same thing as well, and they will keep using this even if it expires for them, as long as they have this charge, and they lose the charge if they die. So if you keep them alive, you never have to use another consumable again, so long as you have these companions. Obviously, if you lose the companions, you also lose the consumables and that sort of thing. But that's the thing to know. You have to try to keep them alive. So otherwise, you can rather buff them with all this other stuff, and you can see they're also drinking the troll potion here, and they're also drinking the armor one here. Boom, boom, boom. Another plus 50 armor. I mean, the enchant is like 25 and 25, so it's like two enchants worth of stats, so that's not bad at all. Strength, and most of them use the all of them, they use the strength one, of course. I mean, the priest used the agility one, just because, again, at low tiers you don't really have a lot of options, so it's either the strength or the agility one. At least the agility one gives them some armor, so there's some benefit to be gained there. Food, same thing. 6 stamina and 6 spirit. Again, spirit on the server, bonus spirit, gives you increased experience gain from defeating monsters. You can see I already have 13, which means plus 13, which means I get 13% more. If you type in stats misc, I may have turned it off. I may have turned it off of the spirit healer. I would have to go and check. I'm not sure. When I die, I'll go check it out. But otherwise, it should say here spirit 13% and whatever. So that's cool. Which means you may want to keep an eye on gear that comes with spirit. And again, scroll of spirit, but since I turned it off, it's kind of questionable. But they're using a scroll as well. So you see, the tank used a scroll of stamina. The DPS use a scroll of agility. This guy used a scroll of intellect. So they still use their equivalent stuffy poops. And if I'm not mistaken, if I used another one, if I use another one, they'll keep using. If you use 3 of them, they can use like 3 separate ones. So for example, the tank used an armor one, a stamina one, and an intellect one. All very good choices for him. The DPS used agility, strength, and armor. There's basically, he doesn't have any other choice. The priest used intellect, spirit, and armor. Again, no other choice. But at least I just emptied out one of my inventory slots, so I don't have to worry about this anymore. So now we're pretty buffed up, I would say. My own consumables will expire eventually after this duration, but they will keep refreshing theirs automatically forever, so long as they don't die. So that's kind of the caveat here. You have to make sure that you keep these guys alive, and one of the ways to facilitate that pretty well is to use pullback and to use commands. And like you see, I use pullback there, and the tank went and he picked up those guys and he grouped them together. He could drop consecration, and the companions dropped bombs on all of them because there were 3 of them. They're all grouped together. So it's exactly what I said will happen, and what I expected. Is the reason why I put this group together, because we have sort of a very good mix of classes and buffs and all sorts of goody things. So that is how it is. Now, when you do a pullback, I've already explained how pullback works in, I think, the previous video even. So you should already have some understanding of that one. I'm not going to go over it again. But you can see that it works very well, and things are dying pretty quickly. On top of the fact that, well, these guys are level 18. So we are definitely a bit over leveled, let's say. Which means we can be a bit more careless and just pull, and yes, we'll just gather them all together, and the tank will make his way over here. He's basically, in his logic, he's trying to make sure that he holds aggro on everybody. So inevitably he will make his way over to you to pick up whatever is attacking you, because you're considered to be I don't know where these guys are going, but let's have a little bit of a target discipline. So I'm considered to be a DPS by this guy, which means he's trying to defend me. So he does so by the best of his ability. Another thing okay, I forgot to, you see, because I didn't have the auto loot pet out, now I have to manually loot all of this. So he's going to auto loot at the moment a target dies, but not before, not after. So if you summon him after a target is dead, nothing is going to happen. He's not gonna loot for you. And one command that I used here that I think is pretty good is com toggle. So I use this com -t command here. This made all the companions practically just kind of glue to me, and they always try to be at my location and that sort of thing, which means that we can very strategically position ourselves, so I don't have to worry about them running into some bad spot that I don't want them to. Instead, I'll just always be at my location. And part of the reason why I said I didn't want to go with a hunter, because we're all fighting within melee range, so it's all good. Now here we don't need to do a com toggle, we can just do a pull. This will send the tank in, and once the tank has established his spiel, now we can just all go in and do a start command. Like I've explained in a previous video, I like to pause them for longer duration and then just have control over when I unleash my DPS. that sort of thing. You may see them say something in chat here, like the rogue said OT colon 80 over 75% is tank. The tank is Javier here, and the master is asshole Blade here. What does that mean? It means that when you are fighting a boss, which we currently are, the companions will try to hold back aggro. Okay, so if you have a DPS, he'll be like, who's got the most amount of threat in this group on this boss? Oh, how much do I have? Well, the rogue said something. I have 80% 80% threat right now, and I kind of gave them an arbitrary limit to where they start to hold back their damage rotation, and in this case it's 75%. Whatever, could have been much higher. I just like them to be safe, which means they look at their threat relative to the tank, and they say, hey, relative to the tank with the highest threat, because you can have multiple tanks, you have 3 tanks. They look at which one of these guys has the highest threat. Javier, cool. How much threat do I have relative to him? 80% relative to Javier. And once they go past this arbitrary limit of 75% that I gave them, they hold back and they stop attacking in order to let Javier here, reestablish aggro. Why are they doing this? Because if they don't do this, then they may accidentally pull aggro from the tank, and the boss will attack the squishy DPS, which is a bad idea. Now, in order for this DPS guy to pull aggro from the tank in melee range, because it matters the range as well, he would have needed something like over 110%. So he was still very far away, 35%. Far away from that happening, so it's not really the biggest concern. This is the threshold here is rather low, but in a dungeon oriented situation you might find that from 75% to 115 is really just like, I don't know, 115, 120, something like that, because it kind of depends, it depends. The threshold at which they put kind of depends on how far away from the boss are they. Are they in melee range of the boss or not? Because they could be not in melee range. If you're talking about, say, a range DPS, or maybe the melee is doing some mechanic, or maybe the tank has been stunned, or maybe the boss has some spell to reduce aggro. There's all sorts of combinations. So it's good to be a bit safe, and it's good to be just more careful, because if you're doing some kind of progression, which is where this matters the most, you find yourself that you really do need every DPS and every little bit on the table. So you cannot afford to lose DPS, which means you cannot afford for your tank to randomly just start losing aggro and stuff like this. So there it really does matter. You can turn off this limiter. I've explained, I think, in one of the first videos. You can whisper them, set limiter off, and they will no longer care about this at all, and they'll just attack whatever. I don't really recommend you do it unless you really know what you're doing, and yeah, it's not really necessary, because ultimately it's not really about how much damage, say, your DPS can do. It's more about how much threat can your tank generate, and that kind of sets in a way the upper limit of what you are of how fast you can actually kill a boss and that sort of thing. So that's, I don't know, pretty interesting to know, I would think, and you can definitely start to see why actually doing a pull command, even though it may seem like you're wasting time, like, oh, I have to wait 10 seconds with my DPS pause. But yeah, on the flip side, if you don't wait and your guys start pulling aggro and stuff like this, then you're probably gonna still lose time. It's not necessarily more efficient. You're losing time in just a worse sense, because now it's risky and you might wipe. And that's how I think about it, at least. But truly, ultimately, it depends. It depends on what you're doing, what your composition is, all sorts of little poopy factors such as. So this is with more experience you are able to tell for yourself on your own what is it that you need and how to be more efficient and that sort of thing. But for now I'm just going to show you all the bells and whistles, and yeah, you can thereon decide on your own what is it that you like, what is it that you need, what do you think you're gonna I don't know, what's your play style like, what are you more comfortable with doing. I don't know, it truly it depends. The answer as usual is it depends. Let's pull the boss here. But you can see we're doing very good. I'm not doing so good because I'm still training my axe. I just got this axe and I have very low skill with it, and I'm missing a lot of hits. That's why my damage is low. But you see the rogue and the cat, their damage is very close to each other, and the tank is doing a good job as well. So I'm happy about this. The priest, whenever he gets a chance, he'll 1. That's why he has like 4.6% of the total DPS. So that's pretty cool. Okay, the paladin bubbled me because I was being attacked by the boss. So, you know, may not be so important in this particular situation, but in a raid situation, it could just make the difference. Because, again, if you are in a raid, the boss so much as sneezes at you, you might just, you know, hit the floor, hit the ground. So, yeah. You can click it off if you notice it, and sometimes I do, other times it takes me a while, but it's unexpected, but it's still very useful. It's even more so useful when you're trying to protect some squishy like a mage or a warlock, who are sometimes very crazy with the damage, and they might accidentally pull a lot more than they should. So it's very cool in those cases. Yes, and the companions also comment here and there about whatever they are killing, which is a little bit of fun. Let's stay here, because I know there's like one guy coming. Actually, we can probably do a bit more careless, because you see everybody's in very good shape, so we're not struggling whatsoever. But yeah, you see exactly what I meant. Between the paladins AoE and the bombs, there's like absolutely crazy amount of AoE damage. This is why I like doing dead mines at level 20, just because of the paladin and the bombs. It's very, very, very juicy. Yeah, the consecration has 8-second cooldown, so if you notice that your tank has dropped it somewhere else and you pulled some other stuff in the meantime, just bring the mobs over to the consecration area. Just makes things easier. And if we are to look at his damage, you can see that 10% of that comes from reflect, as I promised it would. Which means that we did a pretty damn good job putting together this team composition. And the dynamite is 5% there. Of course, I mean, why wouldn't it? It's very nice. Yeah, 3, 4, 5%, that sort of thing. A little bit more for the priest because he doesn't attack as often, but he can still throw a dynamite. Why not? You know, it just adds up. Again, it's like, think of it like onion layers. Little by little, just, you know, you keep adding up stuff, and yeah. Normally, against these guys, you have to be very careful and only pull about 2 of them at a time. Especially if you do this around level 18 or 19, you should definitely pay attention and not pull too many of them at the same time. So 2 of them, super good. 3 of them, I don't know, like right here in this case, only if you have like good gear and things, and we do have good gear, so we can definitely be a bit riskier. But no more because it's very rippy situation here. One thing you can do if you just group up everybody, you see that, well, there's the one guy who ran away, so it's rather annoying. If he comes back, they'll just drop a bomb as soon as he gets in the radius. Probably, if they don't have a cooldown, I suppose. No. So yeah, that's how it is. Pretty smooth, I would say. Very, very enjoyable. And also the experience is very good. Halfway there. The inventory is not good at all. You cannot trade your stuff to the companions. I mean, that would be funny, wouldn't it? But yeah, also rather moot. Yeah, what you can do is what I normally... Oh, I wasn't paying attention there, and they slipped by my nose. What you can do is just, yeah, keep doing pullbacks. If you have someone with a bow, if maybe you yourself have a bow, sadly I haven't found a bow, I don't think. But yeah, I highly recommend you don't let them just charge off into the distance like this. Just pull them back up the stairs. Oh, that dynamite did not go where it's supposed to. If you pull them back, they will come up the stairs, and you reduce the chance. You reduce the chance of them accidentally pulling something that you don't want them to. So that's how it goes, and it really makes all of the difference. Oh, okay, so because my bag is full, notice how my auto loot pet is no longer looting the stuff. Not that it was worth looting that thing in particular, but either way. So again, you can do a corner pull here. Tank will go in. Once he established aggro with that creature, he'll come back to that position as before, and yeah, now you can kill the thing. Pretty cool. Pretty damn cool. The Foundry, historically speaking, is one of those places where it has claimed many lives. So it's very good, even though you are a little bit over leveled, to still pay attention and still be careful and that sort of thing. You see exactly what I was telling you about. You saw the paladin right there. He stopped to heal himself. So he made sure that he has all the aggro of all the enemies, and then he just healed himself. And yeah, the priest is out of mana, but the paladin can heal himself. And it's not like he's struggling to stay alive or anything like that. So he's doing a very good job. His damage is very good AoE. The reflect helps a lot, which is why you should do pulls. So he can capitalize on that reflect. He can heal himself. His armor is good. He's using all mail pieces and with high armor and all that jazz. So just good stuff. Okay, that's why I prefer the magic ones. I know a lot of people ask, what's the difference? Well, there's the difference. Like the might guy would have had probably like strength and stamina or something, I don't know. And this guy maybe has intellect and stamina or something. So the other guy was more tank and evasion oriented, but you know, you can certainly make different all sorts of arguments on these topics. As with many things, it just depends. Truly, I don't know what to tell you. Kind of make up your own mind about it. I'm just showing you what I like. So once again, pull back, and let's come toggle, because there's one guy around the corner here, so that's not something I want to deal with. the shooter range guy will come up here anyway. Eventually, we can just keep everybody on com toggle, and that's fine. One thing to note is that even though I keep these guys on com toggle, the tank is not gonna try to attack some mob like way in the distance that he cannot reach. He's going to realize, hey, I cannot move here, so I'm just going to attack whatever mob is closest, even though I really have to go and take aggro from somewhere else in the distance, that sort of thing. So they have a little bit of common sense, let's say. And as you can see, we're making a huge amount of cloth. So again, it's very, very easy to make bags, very easy to make bags, and to bag up all your bank holds and all that jazzy poops. Shouldn't be any issue whatsoever. Okay, let's pull those guys. I could let my guys drink up a little bit more, but whatever. Let's just pull them around this corner. But you see, it's all about the corner pulling. Always, always, always corner pull. You're not gonna go wrong with corner pulling. These goblins, I think, normally they kind of despawn on their own. It's rather hit and miss if they do or if they don't. It just got super nuked with the bombs. But yeah, you can see what I mean, and I hope I can really, I have stressed enough this whole consumable sharing system type of situation. I wish I could show you in a more direct way, and I can only with the dynamite. So the dynamite is 4, like 4 to 5% of the damage, something like this. Depends. Here we can do a normal pull. Okay, so that's the dynamite, and think about the fact that it has a 1 minute cooldown and all that stuff. But all the other consumables, they're always on, so you always benefit from them throughout the duration, which means you're getting a lot of goodness from them, and I highly, highly recommend it. It's good to also have some extra consumables in case you die and they lose the charge and you need to rebuff your companions. But mostly, I don't know, it depends. The cool part about the whole thing is that once you start to get into eternal stuff, okay, so once you have all professions maxed out on a character, you start to have a chance to obtain these eternal elixirs, and you see these are not used upon or not consumed, whatever you want to call it. So well, they do have a 2-hour cooldown. That's kind of their problem, but they're not consumed. Oh, here's another thing, everyone. You see that in the chat, the tank and the paladin and the priest both said that they've upgraded some rings. So they said they upgraded with the blue one that I just picked up, and they replaced the green one that they had, the one they came with, basically. And that is something that can happen. They always look at the gear that drops, the one that you pick up, and they compare it with their current gear, and if they detect an upgrade, then they slap that on. Now, there is, I mean, it kind of depends because, well, no, I would say that what the problem is with this, even though it sounds really cool on paper, is that you don't keep your companions. So eventually you're gonna, go to sleep or whatever, and you're gonna dismiss the companions, and well, they'll go into the cities, and you can rehire them from the city. They're gonna be roaming around, that sort of thing. But you don't keep them persistently or anything like that, which means yeah, if they get some kick-ass upgrades, you better enjoy them when you get them, because later on you're not gonna have you're gonna have to start over again. So if your warriors find some kind of kick-ass weapon, then yeah, consider, at least if you're, well, I mean, even if you dismiss the companions that go in the city, someone else can hire them from you. But what you can do, in addition, if you have a friend who would like to have that sort of thing, then you can give it to him. Give your companions to that friend or guild member, whatever. So that's sort of spiel, and I don't think I need this upgrade. But yeah, it's pretty funny in a sense. It's a curious thing that they do. Yeah, I need to go. I don't think I can open this. Can I? Wait. Hey, here's a cool thing, everybody, because I said if you have a rogue, he can open locked doors and chests and lock boxes. And the way you do this, if you click on the rogue, so you have him selected, and you click the use button or do a Z use command, whichever. So either you use it from the control panel or from the chat command, whichever you prefer. Then he's going to do this, and you can see the door is open, and he would have said so as well. And I think if you just do it like this, you also don't alert everybody in here. Don't really know if that matters or not, but for the giggles, I suppose. So that's how that goes. Pretty cool. Not a huge necessity, I would say, in this case, but later on, when we will do stockades and other dungeons, you can find locked chests, and sometimes you may obtain lock boxes which contain green items and stuff like this, and recipes and whatever else that are pretty interesting. So yes, it's like the rogue. Typically, I think, in my experience, you'll see him at the top of the list here in DPS. He does very good DPS. It's usually the best, at least while leveling, and raids is kind of a different situation. But yeah, he's very, very good at damage situation things. So I enjoy having a rogue, especially because sometimes he can open doors. Like in BRD, he can open doors and that sort of thing. There's multiple BRD, Dire Maul, that sort of thing. He can open doors, so he can make it a bit easier for you. You can do some skip a dip if you don't want to clear everything and get keys and all that sort of jazz. So yeah, worth considering. In other situation, right now, I think the other guys can keep up with him on account of the fact that we are kind of we're over leveled relative to the enemies. But if that wasn't the case, if we were under leveled, then the rogue would actually do a little bit better still, because I don't know, it's just the way it is. Sometimes he puts someone called marketeer, funny, good one. Sometimes he puts points into precision, which further increases his hit chance, which helps with fighting higher level enemies and that sort of jazz. So yeah, just pretty good. He can also gouge and blind and that sort of thing, which is good SAC every now and then, and he will do that to protect himself. I think in TPC I've kind of extended the whole thing where they don't just use CC to protect themselves, but also to kite for other team members and things of that nature, which makes them even more versatile. Eventually I'll update the vanilla logic as well, but it's it's a lot to go through, believe me. But still, decent job. I don't know. Well, as long as it works and we clear the thing, good times. Come on, sir. Yeah, and my bags are constantly full, and I cannot pick up this, well, weapon that's not really that much better. Now, is it? I don't know what to do. Let's just throw some stuff away. I suppose what we could do here is we can use the scroll of stamina, even though they have 3 scrolls applied already. what would happen if I use it now, they would gain another charge, which is kind of a point I should have brought up sooner. Is that, let's do a pull here. They gain charges. So let's say right now for this one elixir of fortitude, they have a charge, which is why they'll keep using it forever, so long as they don't die. If they die, they lose a charge. But if you use multiple of these consumables, then they gain multiple charges. So even if they do die, then yeah, they'll just keep, well, they lose the charge, but they still have charges, so they can still use the things. Basically what I'm trying to say. So that is cool. What is not cool is I don't know what to throw away, man. It's like every looter's nightmare. Ooh, 10 silver, nice. That will fetch a nice price. I don't know. I'm having issues with the loot. I guess we'll throw away some rough stones, whatever, dude. What can I do? Like I wish I had the solution. I need the bigger bags, but you see, for bigger bags I need to get... Whoa. No. Okay, so what you can do is if you can just pull them all together here, you notice that you group up the enemies together, and that allows them to use bombs as they have in consecration and that sort of thing. So definitely pay attention to your positioning and your companion's positioning, because it does matter. And actually, ideally, what you want to do with a team like this, well, what you want to do first and foremost, you want to let them drink. But after they've drunk and they killed the guy with the Frost Nova, bless his soul. And actually, I think the priest will dispel you. I think the paladin and the priest will dispel you, but it's kind of like a low priority. So it depends. They have a priority on dispelling stuff. So they go out of their way to dispel hard CCs like stuns, fears, whatevers. But if they have nothing else to do, instead of wanding, they can also dispel roots and whatever else. So that's why some of these guys got dispelled, but I didn't get dispelled as quickly, so that sort of thing. Just a fun little tidbit that's maybe worth mentioning. Here there are a bunch of them, so just send the tank in. He has all this reflect juiciness. He likes that, so let's go assist him now. And you see he threw the consecration, he threw the bombs, everybody else now comes along, everybody throws the bombs out. If I had bombs, I would have done it myself. You see now he's healing himself because he had all the aggro and he was like below, I don't remember if it's 50% or more, I don't know, something like this. But his health was getting low, so he started healing himself, and yeah. Good times, what can I say? Very good times. Ooh, that is super juicy, man, but I'm not sure what the heck to do. Okay, let's use this scroll, because what can I do? I think you may be able to buy scrolls from a vendor or something like this, or sometimes you can even find them on the auction house if you pay attention to that sort of thing. I know a lot of people are looking for scrolls nowadays because of this very reason. They're especially useful in raids. Yeah, I mean, in raids you basically just stack all these things together and you buff your whole raid, Rooster of Companions, and you kick a lot more ass. That's why it's... I'm trying to keep my professions up because... Yeah, imagine that every single enchant, every single potion that you drink is multiplied by 5. That is not little, okay? That's not an insignificant number. So definitely worth paying attention to. We have to pay attention here. There's one boss who patrols around. Oh, level up again. Cool. If that boss patrols around and he does draw aggro on you, as he comes around, there's this little wheel there where it's a giant wheel, really. So if you go jump on that thing, you can make them evade, which is what I I use a lot of times when I make mistakes here. Companions, if they die, ooh, if they die, they then revive themselves after 5 minutes. But if you leave and enter a dungeon or an instance, they revive no matter what. And you can also revive them in a normal way of just casting a resurrection spell on them, whatever. So you certainly have options when it comes to that. You can see the priest is dispelling stuffs. Let's wait for the boss to go away again. Goodbye, sir. We're gonna fight him on the upper deck as we go there. So let's come toggle the companions. And we're just gonna pull all of these dudes together here in the corner. Just gonna pull everybody on stake. You see they started dropping bombs and consecrations. And by the time Greenskin is around, these guys should be dead. But we'll just wait for mana and stuffs. There's no need to rush. And I'll also go look into that chest over there. But yeah, I would say pretty smooth so far. No surprises. I mean, I knew it was gonna be smooth just because we're over leveled here. Yeah. The question is what to throw away. I don't know. We can drop the linen. I don't know. It's tough, man. It's really tough. I can tell you. We're gonna drop that potion, and hopefully I'm not jinxing it, and we actually end up needing it, which does seem to be the case sometimes. So here we're gonna send the tank in. We're gonna do this. Just unload everybody, and you see they're just throwing bombs in, bombs out. And right now, the bomb amount is something like 4%, 5%, 6% even. Yeah, that's me. I haven't thrown any. Wow, 26% for the healer. That's pretty damn juicy. More of this. Hey, this is actually pretty good. I like me some strength. Okay, I guess we don't have a choice, do we? We gotta drop something. Okay, so for the final boss, there are different ways to handle this boss. And normally if you don't have a lot of damage... Ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Normally if you don't have a lot of damage, you want to place crowd control marks on these guys and kind of just focus on the dudes. And you can still focus on the dudes, it's not like it's a problem. But you can CC one of them and just focus one of them down. Don't put a CC mark on the boss, it's not going to work. You can see the tank, he's healing himself, and once he lost aggro, he went back to try to reestablish it, so that's cool. It's what you do. Let's just kill the boss now, so you can put a skull mark just to make sure that they'll definitely focus. And, yeah, super easy perhaps, barely income. I'm not sure what this guy goes into bear mode. I've seen this happen a couple of times. I need to look into this, definitely a bug. But anyways, pretty damn juicy, super smooth. Smoothie. I don't know if we need... Oh, I guess it's better. Okay, sure, fine. What to drop? Tell me, everybody. Okay, blasting powder. There you go. And check this out, everyone. If you look at what they said in the chat, you can see that a whole bunch of them, except for the healer, have upgraded their stuff. And they calculate the gear score, if you will, of the item based on their class stats, what they prioritize more. Like Cat really likes agility, so it's like a huge deal for the Cat, and he's like very crazy about it. Of course, the Rogue as well, and that sort of thing. That's what this number means here. Though really, I think in TPC I did something where it just says how much better is it percentage-wise, or something like this. Because the number may be a little bit unintuitive, like you don't really understand what's that number about. It's just the number that indicates their gear score, or their perceived gear score of that item, the one they calculate using their own stat points. So here we are, we're gonna kill Cookie, and that's gonna be it. My damage is definitely sad, but again, I was training my, you can see I'm still missing and dodging a lot, because I was training my axe skill, which is fine. More stuff to loot, more things, more poops, more loots. Let's throw some heavy stones. I don't know what to say, man. It's hard, okay? Looting and backspace issues, everybody. Cool. Yeah. Guys, I'm just trying to go to base. Like, you're really insisting, so it's like, okay, if you really want to die, okay, have it your way. What can I do? It's gonna let you live, but you really had to make me. Look what you made me do. Okay, so we got everything inside here. Let's go teleport to Sentinel Hill. Well, what I would have liked to show you, just to kind of stress it out for you, here's how I normally do. Let's say that I want to keep farming a dungeon, okay, like Dead Mines, which I'll be doing on heroic mode as well. Well, I should have put my Hearthstone in Stormwind, and really just put your Hearthstone wherever, yeah, just put it to Stormwind or whatever city you can go to quickly. It kind of depends though a little bit, I don't know, you kind of have to figure out because it depends. But put it somewhere where you can quickly go back to town and just unload your inventory. And later on, when you have even bigger bags, you're gonna make even more profits. Also, I really like the fact that the companions fly with you like this information. Anyway, that's beside the point. But what I do is, as soon as I come out of the dungeon, I just go to the auction house and I dump everything that I don't need to. I don't intend to use. And some of this stuff like soulbound weapons, I usually don't vendor them, I just disenchant them because I want to also, I showed you the enchants, right? So the proof is in the pudding, everybody. They share the enchants and really just the damage is very nice, okay? So I don't know, make what you will of that. So I'm investing into enchanting. Everything that is bind on equip, like this pair of legs, whatever, this is just prime example of what you should be putting on the auction house. I don't know, some other things, like if there's soulbound stuff, yeah, just disenchant. Sometimes I think I just drop these. Well, I think it kind of depends on what you want to do. If you're going to do more dungeons, then you should keep them with you, otherwise whatever. And also, really good point, because you saw them upgraded in gear, and like I said, the companions are not permanent and they go away. Yeah, but they do have their whatever they have upgraded, right? So they do keep that stuff, and it again, it just adds more layers to the onion. Okay, so from like when they replace that back there, like let's say the rogue, he had like a 2 agility and he gained a 6 agility, and that's 4 agility, and 4 agility is like 1 consumable worth of stats. Okay, so I don't know, you just keep adding to the onion. And now if I go back in there and we're gonna do a heroic mode, though I'm gonna end the video and just probably gonna show you clips or something, and it's just gonna be a little bit easier. And you see, boom, you see normally it vendors for 5 silver, and it automatically sets the auction house add-on automatically sets the price to double. Okay, so you don't have to do anything, you just boom, you open this thing and you just click post. You just click post. Don't have to think it through, you don't gotta do nothing. Yeah, just bunch of money, easy money, super easy money. I don't think the marketer buys gray. I don't think that's the case, so cannot do anything about those. But everything else, like you can make I have to remind me to go die and check out my spirit. But anyway, that's beside the point. The point is, spirit may be interesting to you just because it gives you extra XP. So yeah, I don't particularly care. I'm leveling fast enough as it is. But everything else, A lot of these patterns I just send to one of my bank alts. That's how I deal with them, and later on I may come back and look at them and try to learn them. But yeah, just sell, 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 sell. Look at how much BOE stuff. So that's probably like at least 1 gold worth of stuff. Also this linen, I mean, I would use the linen and the wool just to level up like my professions here, some like this, and then just sell the byproducts. Some of this stuff that I don't need at all and wouldn't necessarily make me a lot of money relative to my current situation, I would just send to a bank alt. So maybe my next character can use that and that sort of thing. Also, I highly recommend you use the PF UI, which redoes all your interface, but also provides a bunch of quality of life stuff, like automatically repairing your gear and selling gray items to the vendor. So a lot of good quality of life add-ons. I recommend you pick them up and you use them. Okay, I think this video is like 2 hours long, so yeah, I need to go rest my voice, and I'll be doing a heroic straight after, and maybe I'll just put in some highlights, okay, just so you can see how it goes. But yeah, or maybe next video, everybody, I don't know, we'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. See you in the next one.